everything out later.
Yeah, forget about it.
I'm so leaving this in.
And
Please
our
don't.
second story. There we are. All right. Sorry, give me just a minute.
I like the top comment. Holy shit. Dot. Blank, 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 blank. Pun intended.
Oh yeah, this one's gonna be golden
Okay.
or brown. No pun intended. All right. Good evening, and welcome to the first broadcast of a very special project I've had in the works for the past month or so. A reboot to the Overanalyzing Creepypasta series I hosted here on YouTube for about 2 years, ranging from, I want to say, late 2014 to late 2016. I covered a very interesting plethora of stories during that time, many of which are either no longer available online or have been archived as like unlisted videos on my page. But I hope now that we have the Overanalysts network and channel that we can revive the series with some success and continue bringing you guys some of the very worst short form internet horror fiction that the web has to offer. Little bit of Prelude, really quickly. First, allow me to introduce myself and my new panel for anyone who has just joined us or maybe isn't familiar with the series. My name is Brady, or the Overanalyst. This is the only series I've done online where that name actually makes sense, by the way. I'm just realizing. And normally I'd say on the internet I am like a really, really cheap, basic literary critic. I'm like 2 notches above the nostalgia critic when it comes to legitimacy of like my arguments, but I am there. But no, now I'm a Twitch streamer and podcaster who is reading terrible fan fiction on the side. And I'm joined by my 2 wonderful friends and co-hosts who can take a moment to introduce themselves now.
Hi, I'm Martina, and basically I'm just here to laugh at stuff. In my free time, I do also Twitch streaming, and you can find me on Seph the Overwitch on Twitch.
Seph the Overwitch on Twitch. Hi, Mate. Also do a bit of Twitch streaming when I have the time and my computer doesn't crap out. And that's basically it. Just games and software engineering. My life is boring.
Hey, you also do a lot of 3D printing, so...
Yes, which involves me pressing print and then waiting for 5 hours, like finish, please.
Basically
finish.
watching the paint dry, only like more expensive
Also, yes,
version.
when I paint it, then yes.
Waiting to be able to watch the paint dry. You're like at the midnight premiere.
It's
for
like
paint
the
drying.
meta waiting.
Yeah.
Drawing the prequel.
Paint buying. All right.
That's expensive.
Okay. So, with that established, I would like to take a little bit of time before we dive into today's stories, of which there are 2. We originally had 3, but one of them was far too lurid for broadcast, I think. Like, I originally thought it was going to be funny because it said it was inspired by PUBG and Dark Souls and was a horror story, and it turned out...
To quote Brady, it was, oh God, oh dear God, and that was it.
Yeah, there was a lot of language that I don't particularly care to broadcast, say, or ever hear as I scanned that post. So, we're doing 2 others. Not to worry, they both look nice and steamy. But 2 things I would like to preface this entire series with. Firstly, an introduction to the field itself. What is a creepypasta? Either of you have a really tight definition of like what you think of as a creepypasta story?
I guess a made-up story is intended to sound creepy and or scary.
Yeah,
Creepy
spooky
or scary?
stories.
That's true.
Yeah.
But also, at least initially, with the chance of being legitimate or authentic. So
I mean, isn't
creepypasta.
Slenderman like kind of a creepypasta, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Slenderman, been drowned. Jeff the Killer, Ted the Caver. There's a lot of blank the blankers in
Like the
creepypasta.
blankers, yes.
Um, but creepypasta originally were basically horror fiction copypasta. Copypasta, for anybody out there who doesn't know, is like a message board term used to refer to little stories like the types of narratives you would find in chain letters or chain emails and the like, that people would literally copy and paste and send to everyone on their mailing list, or post to every board that they were active on. Creepypasta were just that, but with horror elements, or usually more broadly anything involving the supernatural, violence, anything intended to unsettle or intrigue the audience. Now, the earliest creepypasta were intended, as I said, to bequeath some or contain some mote of plausibility, right? Oh, maybe there's a really eerie glitch in the programming of a fan favorite video game, one copy of a video game. Or maybe there was a lost episode of a popular television series that a couple of people managed to get their hands on and it contained some unusual themes or content. Now, obviously, none of these are true, but when you hear the concept of early creepypasta, the intent is for you, as the audience, right, to say, well, I mean, maybe,
Yeah.
right? You don't immediately say this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
That was thrown out the window almost immediately, though, in the mid to late 2000s, as creepypasta really became something of a phenomenon. There were entire YouTube channels, networks of channels even, dedicated to reading and archiving creepypasta. Several websites were launched with similar intent, I believe the first being the extremely creatively titled creepypasta.com in 2008, and a kind of cottage industry based around reading, writing, interacting with by creating fan fiction based on, or developing games based on creepypasta began to emerge. And this had like a real boom period on the net from, I want to say, around 2007 to 2008, on through, I think it's fair to say, what, somewhere around 2015, maybe? Is that when you
Yeah,
guys
but
stopped hearing about creepypasta?
yeah, more or
About that,
less.
yeah.
And as far as my research is able to tell, I believe that's because more and more creepypasta authors began to step forward and take credit for their works publicly. These weren't like cute little stories anonymously shared online anymore. They were serious efforts by people who wanted to be serious artists and creators and wanted not just the recognition, but also like the relatively serious forum in which they can engage with their audience. So, like, creepypasta as a medium kind of changed to be more like traditional horror fiction, just with a much, much lower bar for entry. You don't have to get published. You just have to write something and then post it on up to creepypasta.com or creepypasta wiki or creepypasta.gov or whatever. And you could reach an audience. That's what makes this art form, and I would argue internet horror fiction in general, so appealing, is that they're really, really accessible. However, that also means that a lot of stuff that's a little bit weaker tends to get through the cracks, and it's stories like that, those that are lacking in one dimension or another, or outright terrible, where we come in. Our goal here is to riff on and occasionally provide some kind of constructive criticism to some of the worst stories we could find. But, fair warning, I don't screen these stories in advance in their entirety. So some of them that we feature with the intent of mocking may actually end up being quite good. This happened on the classic series a couple of times, and I always love to see it. But with that out of the way, one last thing and we'll get started. I'm sorry, guys, I know I've had the two of you just waiting, but just one thing for the whole series, alright? Obviously, right now is an extremely fraught time for people's psychological and mental health. And even though most of the stories that we feature here are going to be poorly written or just kind of hammy, campy, and not all that unsettling to most members of an audience, I want to remind you guys, especially if you're unfamiliar with the format, unfamiliar with the genre, a lot of what makes bad creepypasta bad or some bad creepypasta bad, is the inelegant, brusque, or offensive handling of certain extremely sensitive themes. It's my goal not to feature stories that place such content in the forefront. I prefer focusing on really bad, like writing and grammar and silly little things like that. But since this is horror fiction, even though it's not the smoothest, most polished horror fiction, there may be themes in any story featured on this series which disturb you, which unsettle you, or which may prove triggering for traumatic experiences, memories, or just more sensitive palates. So, while we will try our best to, and many authors, in fact, try to include sensitive content warnings for certain stories that are especially egregious, um, just know that for the duration of this entire program, any story that we feature might be a bit too much, might be too offensive, might be too unsettling, might be too traumatic for certain members of the audience. And of course, I urge each and every one of you to place your own mental health and well being first and foremost. And if you're not certain whether or not something is going to affect you adversely, just skip the story or skip the episode entirely. It is absolutely no offense to us. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Just a general content warning up front, all right? We don't know what's coming down the pipeline, and some of it might be kind of rough. Thank you so much for your attention. Okay, that out of the way, since we talked about the serious, potentially, mind grating effects of some creepypasta, let's read a story called God Toilet.
Yes! Let's shit on some God Toilet creepypasta.
Okay, here we are. Oh, and links will be down in the description for anyone in the audience who cares to follow along with us. Oh, Creepypasta Wiki, it's been so long. God Toilet. It's time to tell the story of the God Toilet! Sentence
That's a very
one.
good intro.
Yeah, exclamation point.
Everybody was waiting on this one. God Toilet.
It's the equivalent, right, of this essay is about World War I and World War II and the impact they had. That's not how you do an introduction for fiction, usually.
Yeah, I mean, you maybe name it in the last sentence, like, from this day on, that toilet was known as the God Toilet.
Well, not just that, but you don't start out with, this story is about X,
Yeah.
you know?
About the title.
But let's see what God Toilet is. I'm curious. That's what we call one of the washroom stalls in the building where I work. It's in one of the men's rooms in an out-of-the-way corner of the building that people don't tend to frequent. I like to go
it's the
there.
only clean wall.
Yeah.
It's the only clean one because it's so far away.
I like to go there, even though it's quite a trek across the building, because I'm the shy type when it comes to bathroom duties. Already, too much information. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need to know your pooping anxiety.
Yeah, no, I really don't need to know about this, and also, if you hadn't included that clause, I could just have the nice mental image of you being a slacker who just likes to hang out in the bathroom instead of doing work.
And read Reddit.
Yeah, we've all been there, right?
Mm-hmm. I usually read Twitter, because it's, quality shit content.
Well, oh, wait, hold on. That, and it gives me an excuse to get away from my desk for a bit. There we go.
There we go.
That's more like it. Mm-hmm. New paragraph, one sentence. Well, I used to like to go there. Well, the God Toilet stall itself has been out of order for as long as I can remember. What? Okay, again, the way you set this up, you're saying you use the stall that's been out of order and non-functioning for, years, and...
Maybe you didn't know that, just noticed after a couple of months of shitting in there.
I think I know why not many people go there anymore. There's this weird guy, and it's flowing over onto the floor.
He doesn't give a shit. Well, he gives too much shit, apparently.
But in the wrong places. Let's see. The reason it's called the God Toilet is because, for some odd reason, that bathroom stall has a spotlight set into the ceiling directly above it.
So you can feel enlightened while you're pooping. Like that episode of Scrubs when they had the toilet on the rooftop.
Yeah, no wait, do you think they meant to say skylight? Like that lets in natural light? but got like spotlight like a stage light.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure because I would imagine that it's like a stage light, just like ta-da.
Behind the scenes in the development of Balan Wonderworld.
No.
Okay. Let's see. No other bathroom stall in the building is set up like that. With the stall door closed, the light from the spotlight comes streaming through the cracks and under the door, as though God himself were taking a dookie break there. Hence the name. Is this horror
can
fiction or is this a joke?
I have no idea. Like, it's being
Or it
set up
sounds
as a
like a
joke.
joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but the thing is, there are separate wikis, there are separate databases for non-serious creepypasta. Either the
Mhm.
crappy pasta database or like the troll pasta wikis. We have to take this, as far as I'm aware, as completely serious.
But it's like I'm thinking to myself, that is the only stall that has a light directly above it.
Yeah.
Like, didn't the guy that was building that thing like, that's an odd place to put a spotlight?
A spotlight!
Like, this is a toilet, not a stage, but okay.
Also, the implication is that the spotlight is on 24/7.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I'm working away one morning when I get that familiar urge. I get up and begin my daily trek across the building. I get to the god toilet washroom, go into the stall, and start doing my thing. Doing. Apostrophe. Yeah. Parentheses, number 1, if anyone cares. I can't imagine anyone will, but it's the details that make the story, right?
Nope.
No. Also, this sentence, it's our first serious typo. No punctuation at the end.
Yeah, well,
Generally speaking, this one's been pretty well written by creepypasta standards so far, compositionally.
Until the guy started feeling like, hey, we are, chums, and he can now start doing the, like the street talk with us.
Casual speech, casual
yeah.
language and writing. Yeah, doing my thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm only there for a few moments when I hear something. I think nothing of it, as strange noises are a common occurrence in the god toilet bathroom.
Yeah, it's called farts.
Yeah, it's Ted from accounting, goddammit.
Fuck you, Ted.
I always wrote them off as voices being carried through the ventilation system. This time, however, the noises were quite clearly coming from the stall next to me. The god toilet.
But wait. He didn't go into the god toilet? I thought...
No!
Oh, okay, because he wrote, like, previously, I get to the god toilet washroom, go into the stall. So I thought, by the way that he wrote it, I thought he was in the, in the thing peeing with the spotlight on him.
Right. No, you're right, that's correct. And he also seems to variously refer to the toilet itself as the god toilet, or the entire room as the god toilet.
Yeah.
Which, as far as I can tell, this is written in Commonwealth English, so, like, if they're from Canada or the United Kingdom, that would be appropriate, but it's confusing.
I don't know, I call it pee-pee place.
Also, a tiny little thing. At the end of both of these paragraphs, got himself taking a dookie break there, full stop, hence the name as its own separate sentence. And then from the stall next to me, full stop, the god toilet as its own sentence. This author seems to replace, like, what would typically be either M-dashes or hyphens or semicolons with periods, creating, like, these little sentence fragments for emphasis, which isn't proper and causes the story to read a little bit more stiltedly than it would otherwise.
Yeah.
Let's see. I freak out. Not
Dogs.
because I think they're ghosts or anything, but because I really have to do have a bit of a shy bladder, and the thought of someone unexpectedly sharing the room with me kind of interfered with my pee mojo!
Oh no.
Not the pee mojo.
No,
Damn it.
I've tapped all my washroom tiles. I have no pee mana left. Let's see. I do my best to continue, but capitalized, Mr. Bladder won't have it. We're very formal in this story. I appreciate that. In the awkward silence...
Did he assume its gender? What if it's Mrs. Bladder?
You're right. You're right. In the awkward silence that followed, I could almost make out words in the odd whispering from the stall next to me. Oh yeah, think we've all been there before. Despite myself, I lean a little closer to the stall wall, feeling like a complete weirdo for listening to someone whispering to themselves on the toilet, but intrigued. There's heavy breathing and what sounds like ... sobbing. Oh yeah, we've all been there.
I mean, heavy breathing and then sobbing. I guess it's person that likes crying after sex. So maybe he was doing the thing and
either that or somebody ate Mexican food.
Yeah, no, I was about to say
did that too. Why do I always go there?
if we're including really nasty anecdotes, well, relatively nasty. This is a story called God Toilet. I remember when I was younger, like about high school, like the last years of high school, went to this really nice upscale Italian restaurant with my family. It was, man, fantastic, right? But I go wash my hands before eating because I think I'd been handling money and things like that and just wanted to, right? I step into the bathroom and I immediately hear what sounds like a slightly viscous liquid being poured over like a bucket of ice for champagne or something like that, and I'm like, oh no. No, coming from one of the stalls, so just setting the stage. This continues for a good long while, a good 8 to 10 seconds continuously. And then I hear, again, panicked, labored breathing, and like a bang against the wall. And then I hear this sharp intake of breath, and then it resumes, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to eat here. I did, and everything was fine. But my thoughts were with that gentleman for the remainder of the evening.
Poor guy.
Ain't y'all glad this show is back? Let's see.
God damn it.
I suppress a giggle, imagining someone so thoroughly constipated that they had broken down in tears. Leaning a bit closer, I can almost make out some words in the stream of whispered gibberish. One of those words was God. Another was help. My amusement was definitely short-lived.
Sounds like a Mexican aftermath.
No, that sounds like somebody undercooked their chicken by a hair too much.
Yeah.
I was just able to make out a whole sentence. Oh God, please help me. When something hit the stall wall. Hard. Hard enough to make the wall bow out towards me briefly, rattling in its frame. The whispering was still going on, but now, beneath it, I could hear grunting. Simultaneously. Again, I'm waiting for the horror elements to be introduced.
Yeah,
so far,
right now it's just comedy. It's comedy and somebody's very rough experience in a very bad restaurant.
Yeah, low animalistic grunting that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand straight up. I had definitely had enough. I zipped up, and in looking down to do so, I happened to glance beneath the stall wall. On the little sliver of God toilet floor that I could see was a drop of what could only be blood.
Somebody was shitting bricks.
Again,
that would explain it.
I'm waiting for the supernaturalism to occur. I got the hell out of that stall, and in a moment of supreme stupidity, decided to wash my hands as quickly as I could.
That's nice. Always wash your hands, kids.
Yeah.
Always wash your cans.
Cans as well.
You want the recycling to be nice and clean, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Let me see. What can I say? My mother taught me well. Good boy, washing your hands.
I hope your mother reads this.
I splash my hands under the water, the grunting behind me getting louder by the moment. In the mirror, I could see the god toilet stall behind me, the light streaming through the cracks. No longer amusing, but ominous. I go to leave, and, in heading for the door, I see something in the mirror that will haunt me to this day. Under the stall door, inside the god toilet, I could see a pair of feet. These weren't the standard loafered, pants around ankles feet you see under a stall door, though. They were quite bare, the toenails long and ragged, the flesh pale and gray. They were dead feet, and they were moving towards the stall door, shuffling with agonizing slowness.
How much space is there between a toilet seat and the stall door for him to be shuffling?
Maybe it's like the handicap stall. If they said it was in a corner, that's likely in a lot of over here at least. They'd give you a few extra feet, but also slowness. Don't think that's the strongest adjective you could end a paragraph on.
Agonizing slowness.
Agonizing torpor, maybe.
Shuffling.
Right. Or end a sentence with, I should say. As I wrenched open the bathroom door, the last thing I heard was the latch on the god toilet stall rattling. Sweating profusely, I walked as fast as I could back to my desk and sat there, shivering and weak, pretending to work. See, he was just going to sit on Reddit.
Yep.
We know. Needless to say, I haven't been back to the god toilet bathroom. My bladder isn't feeling so shy anymore.
No, he's just doing it at his desk, pretending to work.
The end. By Philodox of Something Awful.
Well,
thoughts?
This is a comedy that's just describing probably a very old gentleman having a very rough time in a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody was having a really bad time and, like, drained all the color from their body. Like, kicked their shoes off, was just flailing around, blood was involved somehow.
Sounds to me like a hobo went to shit there because he probably knows nobody goes there.
Yeah, but you gotta use the crap mountain toilet. Like, none of the others will do. Except no substitutes.
Well, perfect lighting and all.
Yeah, I don't know if this was intended to be a comedy, or whether the intent was to present a somewhat funny setting and scenario and then try to subvert it in those last few paragraphs with some mild but genuine horror elements. It kind of feels like the latter.
One thing that I don't understand is if anything years of playing video games and reading books has taught me is that undead usually are not too good with light or direct light. So why would he pick the only stall that has a spotlight above it?
Awaiting divine intervention. Like a hand was just going to reach down from the heavens with a roll of, like, 4-ply and be like, here.
Roll of toilet paper, yeah.
No, but you guys don't understand. Maybe he was perfectly alive and fine when he entered.
He died sitting on the toilet.
And then he flushed his life essence down the drain.
Again, everybody's been there. I chose this one to start us off with because it has such a silly premise. And I will say, for what it is, whatever it is, it's written fairly well. By and large, the conventions of standard grammar are followed pretty consistently. I didn't notice any misspellings or serious, like, lapses in capitalization. The only real, like, little fine-tuning proofreading things I could point out were purely stylistic. Like, oh, you probably shouldn't have capitalized that, or you should have used an M-dash or semicolon here. So from a compositional standpoint, I can't believe I'm about to say this, God Toilet is one of the best stories I've ever featured on this show.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be written quite okay. It's just that the story itself is shit. No pun intended.
Yeah. It doesn't quite work, I don't think, because it's unclear whether or not this is intended to be comedic. It's funny, but it sounds like a lot of that could just be coincidental in the author's overly conversational, like, narrative voice. I would prefer it to either lean a little bit more heavily in the direction of comedy, or stretch out that ending to give us some more grounded, like, horror content. one or the other. It's kind of occupying a weird liminal space right now.
I mean, to be honest, the entire story could have been just a big misunderstanding, so.
Yeah.
I don't honestly think it was purposefully comedic.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that vibe to me.
No, it does seem like they were trying to be like silly and conversational with the setup, and then like subvert us with a right hook at the end, right? So that the horror's all the more jarring. But it wasn't. It was just somebody pooping their guts out and praying to God for help, which is sad more than anything else. It's a tragedy. It's not a horror story. Now, if this were written from the perspective of like the building custodian, like the janitor, then it'd be a horror story.
The guy that had to clean it up afterwards, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was God Toilet. Thank you for telling us the story of the God Toilet, Pilodox. Our next story, which appears to be a little bit more serious.
Oh wait, let us just see if there is anything in the comments before we move on.
Yes. Yes, please do.
First, by Topo Hat. Holy shit. Pun intended. That Man 4 says, very good, quite creepy though. Have you read the story?
No.
Bloody Spaghetti says, it's been a while since I felt creeped out by a story, even though just a bit. I guess knowing not to take yourself too seriously is a dying art. Lovely, I must say.
Oh, that's right, I forgot. Commenters on the Creepypasta wiki love rating stories, and are you guys familiar with like the general trend of Newgrounds reviews or ratings from back in the day?
Nope.
Like, something could be abysmal on that site, and like the review say as much, like, oh, I hated this game, it was half broken, it could do this, that, or the other, and it'd get like 5 out of 10, because the commenters on that site, God love them, are so generous. Listen to these two comments, one after the other. By Le Troll Catfish. What? Creepy and funny at the same time. 9 out of 10. And by Brian Berta, 8 out of 10. Nice work, but wasn't that scary. Still keep trying. So, it didn't do what it was supposed to. It was decent, like, decently written. 8 out of 10. Like, slightly better than Imagine Party Babies. That's what we're working with. Alright.
Yeah, so these commenters don't deserve to be on the internet. You have to be mean or you can go home.
Yeah.
No, but I will say, it is lovely that the community here around these aspiring writers is as encouraging and positive as they are. I would much rather these people receive feedback from folks like that when they're starting out than from people like the Overanalyzing Creepypasta show.
Yeah, I would much rather that these people that are commenting here would comment everywhere else but here, because I think that the other parts of the internet need them more.
Yeah, no, like Amazon reviews need to be written by these folks exclusively.
Or Twitter.
Twitter?
Just Twitter.
Twitch?
Yeah, just Twitter.
Okay. Let's check
Instagram.
out 2412 East Cochrane Road by...
did you link it? Yes, you did.
I did.
Yeah, he did.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is a story by, M.M. Pratt 99 at DeviantArt. This is actually licensed under a Creative Commons, I think, attribution license. So
it's that good.
This is pseudo-professional. Okay. This is one of my favorite types of creepypasta, though, as far as I could tell. One about an eerie residence or strange things happening at homes in quiet little suburban communities. Let's see if it's any good. Again, I just read the first couple of paragraphs. It looks like it might be funny, and it's reminiscent of another story I covered in the past. It was actually copyright struck because it was published online for years without the author's consent, we found out. The original author, I mean. Like, it was modified and all that. Let's have a look-see at what Pratt has for us. It was April 1st, on a Friday. School had just finished, and the spring weather in Curtisville was warm and sunny. Those that weren't buried in piles of chores and homework were already making plans for a fun-filled weekend. Generally, like, after school on a Friday, I don't know about you guys, but in my communities growing up, Like, your weekend was Saturday and Sunday. Like, Friday afternoon and evening were dominated by, like, schoolwork and all of that, getting everything for the week done.
Yeah, and usually
Like,
Sunday afternoon and evening as well.
oh,
Not
yeah.
for me.
Oh?
I was a bright kid back then, and I didn't really have much trouble with homework and having to learn and stuff, which is a problem now
Oh, I
because
mean, I didn't either. So, like, learning how to really study when I entered college was like this revelation to me. Like, oh god, we have to do this? Okay.
yeah, exactly that. Because back then I was just like, oh yeah, I had like I did my homework during class because the
Yeah.
teacher was talking about boring shit,
Mm.
and you know, I studied for the test like the day of the test, like 15 minutes just going through my notebook,
And since I
and
was
then
homeschooled and most of our grades were based on like these big long year long exercise books, I could just sit down like, while watching TV or something. If it was math skills I already knew and just like plow through a week's worth of work.
yeah, exactly. So I just didn't really had any stuff to do at home.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
gotcha.
for me, I had a lot of work that was not really dictated by the school, but by my parents, because
Mm-hmm.
I was the type of kid that didn't really understand rules. As in, I wasn't purposely trying to break rules or disrespect the authority or whatever. It's just like I did not understand why I had to do things as I had to do them. So, for example, we had this one subject that was supposed to teach you about like nature stuff and like families and stuff like that. So we had an exam where we had to write the words for like what is the sister of your mother called? What is the brother of your mother called? Just like
Mm-hmm.
the names of family members. And
Right.
me, the smartass, I responded to questions like that with, "My mother doesn't have a brother. My mother doesn't have a sister." Of course, I got an F, and my teacher was like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "You asked. I answered."
Right. No, and that would be a valid response. Like, I assume they
Uh,
were asking for aunt, uncle,
yeah,
things like that.
aunt, uncle. Yeah, because we have different names when it comes to mother's side and father's side.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they wanted us to know which one is which for me was never important. Like I still call them all the same name. I don't give a shit. But yeah, apparently you have to learn that in school, and I was just like, well, my mother doesn't have a brother, so why the fuck should I know that? Makes no sense. Of course, my parents had to come to school because of that, because the teacher thought I was being a smartass when I was like, she
Just
asked.
you weren't
Right.
being
No,
a
you
smartass,
took
you were
it
being a dumbass.
you took it literally to mean what is your like maternal
Yeah,
uncle and
like
aunt's name.
she was asking me. I
Right,
answered.
right.
Imagine worse if her mom did have a brother or sister. She was less like Steve.
but my mother has two brothers. Who do I put down now?
Which
I
one?
I have to choose my favorite. This is so unfair. Please don't tell them.
Oh man. Okay.
Anyways.
Let's see what we have here. At the residence of 2412 East Cochrane Road, 8-year-old Ralphie Brierly raced to the bathroom and found that after several frantic twists and turns of the knob, that it seemed to be locked. He paused to peer into the frosted glass window on the upper half of the door. A lot of bathrooms in today's episode.
Yes, yes. And also, what kind of last name is Brierly? Couldn't you have just picked up a simpler name to read, like Smith?
Hold on a minute. I want to see. I mean, that sounds like it could be an obscure surname.
Uh,
And yeah, there's like it's a place name, Briarly Park, Briarly Apartments, things like that. All right,
yeah, okay.
it might be a regional thing. Seemed like all of the data I could find was based around the Carolinas.
Mm.
Ralphie found it strange that the bathroom would even have a window when most bathrooms nowadays had solid wooden doors. A lot about this stately light gray Dutch colonial was strange. From its old fashioned speaking tubes and servants' bells to the frosted leaves and lilies etched into the accent glass on all the 12 pane windows, and the way it stood apart from its newer built neighbors, tucked back in the redwoods at the edge of town. Hold on. Da, 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 da. Um, that is just barely a run on sentence.
The thing is, I don't even remember the sentence anymore. It
A
was
lot
that
about
boring.
the house was strange, from its tubes and bells to the leaves and lilies etched into the glass on the windows, and the way it stood apart from its neighbors. Like, grammatically, we wouldn't call that, I don't think, a run on sentence, or maybe it just barely qualifies. But it's still too wordy and contains too many thoughts for one sentence that's meant to be
Yeah.
very descriptive. And the sad thing is, a lot of the detail they give us there actually is very florid. It does its job well. It's just too much in one thought.
Very forgettable sentence, yes.
Mm-hmm. It was one of several houses that were built in the early 1900s by noted contractor Harris Mercer, founder of the still existing Mercer Fraser General Contractor and Engineering, for whom Ralphie's dad was currently working overtime for. No.
Four,
No,
four,
no,
four.
no.
Nope.
That's
No,
one
no.
four too many. For whom Ralphie's dad was currently working overtime. There you go.
Yeah.
Drop one for or the other. Also, it's weird, and I don't think it's grammatically correct. They use a pair of M dashes to separate.
Yeah.
What honestly would be a comma would do the job just fine,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. But like one thing that I've noticed, it seems that the writer is really keen on giving us a lot of descriptive details,
Mm-hmm.
which, would be fine if we were reading a book, but we are reading a creepypasta, and I doubt that, the look of the building really matters in this case. I mean, I know that he's trying to like paint the picture and everything, but as I said, it's a creepypasta, not a book, so
Well,
just like
it is like the polar opposite of the pet rock stories, if you remember. Tina,
yes, I
you
remember.
listened to those, right? Where
Oh yeah.
nothing is described at all. And so you just have to read the entire story in a completely neutral tone.
Mm.
I like that there's a lot of detail here, but I do feel like it could be diffused just a little bit better
Mm.
throughout the story so far. Maybe give us a little bit more detail about the house and the way it looked or the way the interior kind of felt every time you refer to it, since it seems to be the cornerstone of this story. As it stands, we're just getting a shit ton of descriptive work without a whole lot of establishment of the narrative, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
And there's this contractor that his dad works for. Okay, that's fine. Before the arrival of the Briarleys to Curtisville, the house had been the longtime residence of Marjorie Cartwright, who was a widowed retiree and gifted amateur artist. Why is it everybody in this story has a name you would expect to see like in a period piece about the 1800s?
Yeah, I was about to say the same.
Maybe it's foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Ah, they're all ghosts stuck in the same place.
Stuck in the god toilet.
The god toilet contains multitudes.
They cannot pass on to the afterlife until someone flushes the toilet.
They
They've
cannot
been
pass through the toilet. It's been clogged.
they've been passed, but they can't pass on.
God.
Let's see. It was still in good shape by the time the Briarleys took up residence. The same, however, could not be said for the overgrown garden, crammed full of stuff and the stray cats, nor even for Cartwright, who was now convalescing at the Superverins Psychiatric Health Facility down in Uniontown.
These words are way too like the names are way too complicated. Like what? You don't need to do that.
I'm sure it has meaning, but you're right. There's too much packed too densely into
Yeah.
these opening paragraphs. They had to take her out on a stretcher, Gerald Boisvert explained a few days after the Briarleys moved in. Wait, Boisvert.
Who the fuck is Gerald Boisvert?
Who the hell is he? Okay, we'll get to that. Tried to kill herself by downing a bottle of sleeping pills and slitting her wrists. ... Right after the family tried to do one of those emergency interventions. Gerald was 9.5, hence why, upon noticing that, I dropped the, Overwatch McCree voice I set out giving him when we were introduced, and was one of the cool kids who happened to possess an encyclopedic knowledge of weird local history, as well as urban legends. In other words, a kid who makes stuff up.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was gonna say, so he's one of those lying liars that lies.
Correct.
Okay.
You know why old Mrs. Cartwright had all those sheds filled with tchotchkes and stray cats hanging out in her yard? Ralphie shook his head. No. What's a tchotchke?
Exactly. Good, Ralphie.
It's Yiddish for a small piece of worthless crap. Gerald explained. Fake fruit, ceramic frogs, and cow figurines. Anything you buy from a dollar store yard sale. Stuff that even a burglar wouldn't steal. Well, anyway, the reason Mrs. Cartwright had a lot of crap in her yard was because she was keeping the vampires at bay. Now, obviously, we know exactly what they mean, but that sentence on its own reads so well.
Poorly.
I love it. She had a lot of crap out in the yard to keep the vampires at bay. It's not because she was really bad at taking care of her dogs and cats.
Hoarder.
Right. Let's see. Vampires? Ralphie asked, bewildered. Gerald nodded. Yeah, vampires. According to folklore, they're really obsessed with counting every small thing in sight.
Okay, I have to interrupt here for a minute because that is not how a 9.5-year-old speaks.
No, neither of these characters are written as 9-year-olds.
Yeah, he would not have said folklore.
Yes.
Not when
also
about half
according
of his,
to folklore.
Not when half of his vocabulary seems to be comprised out of variations on crap.
Yeah.
So far. Also, I'm not sure about this. Are there folklore traditions where vampires are like obsessive, like classifiers and counters of items?
I know there is about something, but I'm not sure that was vampires.
Yeah, I remember also reading something about
unless we're talking about the Count from Sesame Street.
Oh, please God, let that be the hook.
1, 2.
I have to Google
2 tchotchkes. 3. Oh, fuck this shit. Too many of them.
Okay, I actually googled vampires counting stuff, and it says that old folklore from Eastern Europe suggests that many vampires suffered from a form of OCD, being fascinated with counting. So they're fascinated. It's not, and then after that, it's just about the Count from Sesame Street.
So apparently there is a basis for the Count from Sesame Street.
I have to say, that's really cool. One point to this story.
But it's like, they like it and they have a fondness for it, but it's not like, oh, they're gonna stop murdering people and be like, okay, 1, 2, 3.
So I appreciate the fact that they're drawing on like a non-Western folklore for like this interpretation of a vampire. But what I'm looking to see is there any explanation as to why this elderly American woman believes that version of the tale to be true? Like that version
of Sesame Street, to be honest.
Right, fair enough. Yeah. Let's see. Well, what I heard about Mrs. Cartwright was that she was distracting the vampires with sheds full of junk and hundreds of cats running about so they won't get in her house. There's no such things as vampires, Ralphie murmured. Just made up ones like the Count on Sesame Street or on Scooby-Doo.
There we go.
Hey, they also properly italicized the names of those television programs.
Nice.
Gerald shrugged. Ever heard of Vlad the Impaler? He demanded. That dude was real. No. Ralphie shook his head vaguely. His parents were way too protective when it came to scary books and movies. But we're in America, he pointed out. We don't believe in that vampire stuff over here.
Yeah, no one's ever heard of Twilight.
No. Also, now that you've pointed it out, I can't stop seeing it. These characters are written as adults.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of imagine them being 9.5, yeah, but in like suits with a cane.
Like with their mugs of coffee and briefcases, yeah. Also, we'll see, but they both seem to be written largely with the same voice. Like, one personality or one script isn't distinct from the other. And for, like, the interest of fairness, that's something really hard to do when you're writing, but something that's absolutely essential. Making sure that each of your characters' dialogue reads like it's, well, the words, thoughts, actions of a different person, and not just you speaking to fulfill the role of my protagonist, my antagonist, my supporting characters, or what have you. I think that's going to be the biggest issue with this. Let's see. Gerald frowned and shrugged his shoulders again. Mrs. Cartwright sure believed in it. Yeah, well, Mrs. Cartwright was probably just some crazy OLE cat lady with a big hoarding problem, Ralphie insisted. Like one of those people you see on those creepy reality shows. Wait, his parents were extremely protective and wouldn't let him around any kind of frightening media, right? But he could watch, like, ghost hunting television shows. Insert your
fine,
own joke about these not being scary here, but...
Yeah.
No, I think by creepy reality shows they meant like
Hoarders.
hoarders and stuff like that. Yeah, which, like, from American stereotypes, sounds about right.
Right, but you would have a hard time, like, calling someone who's, like, just a hoarder, or, like, the act of hoarding in and of itself creepy. It's hard to tell. If they're going for, like, oh, the hoarding shows, this makes sense.
Yeah.
If they're talking about, like, programs like pseudo docuseries that focus on old, decrepit, haunted locations, or people's homes that are ostensibly haunted, right? And they call in paranormal investigators to not only sort through all their junk, which did happen on some episodes of those shows, but also cleanse the house, then it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. They do. Let's see. He stared at his new friend thoughtfully for a moment, then said quietly, "No such things as vampires. ... Or ghosts. Dad said people don't come back from the dead like they do in the movies." "They do around here," Gerald retorted before abruptly changing the subject. Despite his initial skepticism of Gerald's story, Ralphie kept a sharp eye out for any vampire-like activity. Much to his relief, nothing weird happened. All of his new friends seemed human and normal enough, indulging in various video games and movies, or hanging out in the nearby cul-de-sac, or backyard paradise, or playground.
Or
Yeah, again, this seems to be the author's most frequent, like, compositional error. They want to put too much information or too many clauses into one sentence, so they just throw it at you instead of breaking this up. Also, backyard paradise?
What's a backyard paradise?
I don't know. Like, just hanging out in a kid's yard, right? Like,
probably.
I did that with friends when I was young, but I would hardly call it paradise. Also, cul-de-sac, just hanging out in the street. But you know, that's also a trope of horror fiction here in the US. Like, not just children, but people in general seem to just hang around a lot more than they do in real life.
And especially, like, in cul-de-sacs, for some reason that is a fascinating thing in, like, media as well. Like in movies and stuff. Like, there is always a cul-de-sac, and everyone knows everyone there, and they're all hanging out together in the same backyard, all having barbecues together. When, let's be real, people are antisocial pieces of shit, and they usually hate their neighbors.
I was about to say, I've never... Well, no. Back in the suburban neighborhood I grew up in, we knew several of the neighbors, not like next-door neighbors or anything, and got on with them quite well. But, like, we didn't know everybody on our street, not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the closest to you, those neighbors you usually don't like.
Yeah,
no,
of course.
No.
Because you can hear them.
Just before, like, the last year before I moved out, our next door neighbors, who we actually knew for a long time and didn't have any issues with, moved out, and some woman moved in exploiting loopholes in, like, the city's, like, zoning ordinances, and tried to set up effectively a, like, one-woman retirement home, like, with her as chief custodian and bringing in, like, part-time nurses and all that to care for the patients there, apropos of nothing, like, without the infrastructure or support you would need to do that. And so, yeah, we didn't get on with them all that well.
That's kind of sus. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, it was technically against city regulations and ordinances, but they used a loophole, so...
Great.
Okay, where were we? Cul-de-sac, backyard paradise. Alright. Eventually, after much clearing, tearing down, digging, and, new paragraph, animal control help, the Brierleys managed to restore the original English garden look. However, in spite of all their diligent restoration efforts, they still kept finding little tchotchkes, and they weren't just restricted to the garden area. They were inside the house too, concealed away behind the walls, behind baseboards and under floorboards, even in the hollow spaces of the ceiling beams. So 2 things here, aside from the paragraph change. 1, that should be despite their diligent restoration efforts, not in spite of. generally, this is a minor thing. You can use either, but in spite of generally refers to somebody or something acting against you. Like,
and also,
in spite of my neighbor's insistence that, like, I bring my trash in before 8, I kept it out until 9:30 last night anyway. That kind of thing.
Yeah, it seems also that the writer really likes the word tchotchkes.
Mm-hmm. And really long sentences broken up by, like, these double M dashes that they would normally use in the place of semicolons, lots of commas where they shouldn't be. Just they have an issue breaking up their thoughts.
Yeah.
Let's see. Everyone thought this was strange except for Ralphie, who thought it was all pretty awesome. There should be a comma between strange and except. It was like Christmas and Easter combined. Look at the photo they attached off to the right. It was like Christmas and Easter combined, with a bunch of political paraphernalia like campaign buttons, plastic bananas, a rubber
what
alligator,
else with the banana?
a stuffed donkey and pig. Oh, yeah, it was like Easter and Christmas combined with a fucking Richard Nixon campaign button.
It's Christmas, alright?
This was clearly written from the perspective of a child. I think the author captures the intended voice of his protagonist, or their protagonist, very well. Sorry, I'll just... The photo got me.
Yeah.
Some strange new trinket was always turning up in unexpected places. His sisters thought it was all due to ghostly pranksters or house sprites. His parents, being realists, thought it was just more of Mrs. Cartwright's collection turning up. Ralphie didn't find the mysteriously appearing tchotchkes a problem. If there was a problem, it was with the bathrooms in the house. Oh god, here we go again.
Again.
Why? There was really only one decent bathroom in the entire house, and that was upstairs. The other, if you even consider it a bathroom, was a claustrophobic closet space next door to the kitchen that just had a toilet and a shower curtain for privacy. Oh, so it's like what Tommy Wiseau made on the set of The Room.
Yeah.
Were there also campaign buttons in the toilet? Mom was always harping on Dad to remodel it, but he never got around to it. Spiders and house centipedes instead of, just regular run-of-the-mill street centipedes or shopping mall centipedes or TV
what
studio
the hell
centipedes.
Are those?
Centipedes?
No.
Or house
like
centipedes?
House, yeah.
I was about to say, what? Let me see. I don't...
Centipedes that live in the house.
Are those very, very long ones with like
No?
1,000 legs?
I stand corrected.
No,
Yes, they
100
are.
legs.
It is a specific species of centipede. My bad.
Oh, okay. You learned something new from a creepypasta.
Hey, another point to it. Anyway, toilet in the middle of the house. Why? Spiders and house centipedes seem to congregate in that one area, presumably because they knew that Ralphie was absolutely terrified of them and that he couldn't use the upstairs one on account of his older sister Lisa commandeering it for her own personal beauty salon, leg shaving / cosmetic counter, and fashion show wardrobe. Leg shaving and cosmetic counter? A leg shaving counter? What?
She puts
Whatever.
her legs up and shaves them? I don't know.
Fair dues.
Sounds impractical, but okay.
At least she didn't do it every day of the week, parentheses, which was a relief, ...
She's lucky if she didn't have to do that every day of the week.
Or that his middle sibling, 14-year-old Marley, wasn't a fashion freak and bathroom hog, parentheses, even better. Yeah, this is the biggest problem I'm having with the story so far. There's just too many clauses, too many thoughts, too many elements squeezed into individual sentences.
Mm.
It reads like the author is like writing, or if they were speaking to you, they would be talking 90 to nothing and like hyperventilating, like...
Yeah, like he has a sugar rush or something and he's just like...
And this is just me, but it feels like the way this information is presented to us is a little disjoint. Like, oh, the bathroom, the house only had 2 bathrooms. Now, one of them was really, really nasty. That's because the one upstairs was usually commandeered by, like, the protagonist's sister, who would do this, that, and the third thing. But at least she wasn't in there every day. She wasn't. The other sister wasn't either. She was halfway decent. But we were originally talking about this one bathroom.
Yeah.
Then we started talking about the other. And then we go down 3 or 4 little habit trails about, like, her or his siblings, right?
Yeah, we start with the disgusting toilet, end up with the middle sister, apparently.
Let me see. He still couldn't make out how Lisa managed to pick the exact time when he was heading to the upstairs bathroom, but she had already barricaded herself inside, humming tunelessly as she devoted herself to yet another marathon makeover session of primping and preening in front of the mirror while posing for imaginary photo sets. Ralphie wiped his sweating palms on his pants legs and squinted in puzzlement at the dark window. It couldn't have burned out again so soon. Maybe Lisa had it off because she was trying out some weird glitter gel or some hair dye that only glowed in the dark under black light. Or under black light, sorry. Nothing weird about a locked, dark bathroom, he told himself sternly. Just Lisa wasting her time as usual messing with her looks. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. One more point. This wasn't written terribly well, but we are getting some gradual build-up here. It's not 0 to 100.
I have a question, though. Why would he be puzzled by that? Like, if I saw, the light not being on, I would just, like, be, oh, yeah, my sister is doing something, goodbye, and just leave.
But he's he's also saying maybe she's got some glow-in-the-dark or shiny reflective cosmetics.
Yeah.
If you can't see any light, though, from the cosmetics or what have you, you might, I don't know, go ask one of your parents to see if the door's stuck or something like that.
But he saw Lisa going in, right? So he knows she's in.
Did he? No, it was just locked.
Ah, okay.
It was just locked when he arrived. Let's see. Still, he couldn't help staring at the door. His hands clenched a little as a sudden chill crept up his arm. Stupid, he muttered to himself. You're being stupid, Ralphie. It's all just your imagination. Nothing to be afraid of here. Frowning determinedly, he made himself go over and peer into the window, pressing his snub nose against the cold glass. What? No, not snub nose. That also can refer to like a snub nose revolver, one of the short barrels.
Yeah, apparently Ralphie is an old gentleman with a revolver now.
Yeah, no, he's working hard. He's like at the office all day, or like he's on the beat, he's a PI or something, and he gets home, and the goddamn bathroom's locked.
Yeah, as I said, Ralphie is going places, just not to the bathroom.
Pressing his snub nose against the cold glass. Semicolon, he listened with growing concern. Then he went and tried the knob again. It was still locked, semicolon. Shifting his gaze back toward the window, he thought he saw the curtain twitch, but couldn't be sure. How can you tell if it's dark?
Yeah.
Ralphie shivered suddenly, feeling that cold chill prickling up his spine and scalp, like hundreds of invisible bugs crawling all over his skin. Ralphie was gonna need to head down to 42nd Street and get a fifth of vodka to help him cool down after this.
Oh, yeah.
I kid. He tried not to think about what Gerald had told him just a few days earlier. More about old Mrs. Cartwright's suicide attempt. When they eventually found her the next day, she was in the upstairs bathroom with an X-Acto knife beside her. Strange how there wasn't much in the way of blood considering the extent of her injuries, or that the wounds were more like jagged teeth marks rather than knife cuts. Because that's totally normal and not something that the police or coroners would look into, right? Like, were there any wild animals in the area? Generally, I don't think you would be able to cut that finely, like big jagged peaks and valleys. It's just me, though. Jeez, Ralphie. He shook his head in disgust. You getting nutty as that old lady Cartwright. Gerald just has a wild imagination, even though he knows a lot of stuff. Nothing to be afraid of here. While he stood there, I
love the accent he has.
Facing the door, rubbing his arms and palms. Where's this cold coming from? It's really freezing in here. He looked up and down the deserted hallway, trying to see if a window had been left open. As he was thinking of whether or not to get Mom, A flickering yellow light suddenly came on behind the frosted glass. Ralphie started, taking a few steps back. Funny how the light seemed dimmer than before. More glow from a lantern or many candles rather than a regular fluorescent bulb. Beyond the door, he could hear the steady drip, drip, drip of the water and the click, click of high-heeled footsteps walking away. Squinting, he tried to make out a shadowy silhouette, but there was none to be seen. "Go away!" an all-too-familiar voice suddenly yelled from inside the bathroom. "I'm taking a scented candle sauna bath." What?
That is way too, detailed.
Is that a thing?
I like my baths, and that is not how I would say that I'm taking a bath. I would just say I'm taking a bath, go away.
Yeah, no, like, you've got scented candles, I get that, and by sauna, do they mean it was just, like, boiling hot? Because that's not a sauna.
Yeah, no.
I like my baths really hot, but yeah, no, also, again, too much descriptive detail even in the dialogue. It's important to write your characters believably, I think, at least when you're writing, like, just casual dialogue. And think, would the regular person put this much detail into communication with their family members in this context? I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. I would say, go away, you freak.
There we are.
But Brady, you gotta get that word count up.
Ah, of course. Mm-hmm. They were not getting paid at all by the word. Oh, that explains the weird flickering light. "Well, I gotta go!" Ralphie yelled back. "Really bad, too!" A slight frown puckered his brow as he wondered why Lisa had decided to put on horribly uncomfortable sandals rather than her usual cozy slippers when she went to turn on the lights. High heels? Those aren't sandals, usually.
Yes, exactly.
Those are like stilettos. "Well, you go use the closet one," Lisa muttered grumpily. "Or if you're in a real hurry, go use a bucket or the bushes even." We get it. The sister's meant to be unpleasant. This is a little over the top, though.
Yeah, and also, like, I used to be unpleasant to my brother, but even I would, like, let him take a piss for 15 seconds and then get the fuck out.
There you go. Nuh-uh! No, sorry. Huh-uh! Huh-uh! No way, Lisa! Ralphie's pulse raced as he pounded hard on the oak paneling. "The closet one's got creepy crawling bugs that scare the bejeebas out of me, and I'm not doing it outside like a bear. You gotta come and unlock the door or get out so I can use the bathroom." "I'm not leaving this tub," his irate sibling called out. "Not when Auntie Flo's paying a visit." Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Again, I think I'm going to be traumatized by mention of toilets after this episode.
or bathtubs, because I now kind of imagine her swimming in a, like...
Oh God!
There we go.
Brady.
There we go. No baths for you.
We're about, Jesus Christ, a third of the way in. Let me see.
A third.
Ralph, what? Ralphie's brow furrowed in puzzlement. "We don't have an Auntie Flo. What's all that got to do with you hogging the bathroom?" "Go ask Mom," Lisa muttered drowsily. There was a faint sloshing of water as she settled back in the tub. "She'll tell you." Ralphie glared at the door through teary eyes.
Aww. He was crying, "I need to pee."
He was crying with his revolver waving in the air. Maybe Ralphie's already been to the bar. I don't know. Let's see. Phew, he paused, crinkling his nose. Where's that smell coming from? Scowling, he sniffed several times before recoiling in terror and total disgust. Toilets, man. I didn't plan this, for the record. Complete panic engulfed him as he banged furiously on the door. "Lisa, are you smoking something really gross?" "Am I what?" "Smoking something gross," Ralphie demanded as he cupped his hands over his nose. "Because it really stinks out here." "What?" Lisa's voice rose up defensively. "I've never smoked anything in my whole life. Not even cigars or e-cigarettes. Not even cigars!"
I mean, she's very specific. Like, precisely those she has never smoked. And she
It's
needs
probably
to
just
tell
the
him
candles
that.
you're smelling. No, not that. Like, I get it. Oh, I don't even smoke e-cigarettes. Like, those are considered less harmful
Yeah.
by some than conventional cigarettes. I think the jury's still out, and they could still be quite dangerous, however. But I don't even smoke cigars. Cigars are typically seen as a way more, like, potent product than cigarettes, standard cigarettes, than weed, than anything like that. Like, a cigar is a strong, or usually contains a strong substance. But I don't even smoke cigars.
Nope, not
Okay,
even them.
fine. Well, there's definitely... They stink so bad, Rolfie groaned, trying desperately to cover his nose with the collar of his shirt. He's trying to, like, shield his nose a different way in every paragraph, and I kind of love that. Smells like that dead cat Dad found in one of the old sheds. Well, there's definitely something wrong with your nose then, Lisa replied stiffly. What I'm smelling is pineapple citrus, capitalized, and coconut milk mango, also capitalized. Now beat it before I throw this moldy old loofah at you. Through the door. And the
why
window.
would you have a moldy old loofah?
I don't know. Also, why would we casually mention that Dad just finds dead cats all over the place?
Yeah.
We don't have a loofah! Ralphie gritted his teeth as he swallowed back a rush of bile? He's gonna puke?
Wait,
okay.
Also, we don't have a loofah?
Yeah.
That's like a very specific detail to know for a 9.5-year-old. Like, do we have loofahs in the house or not?
Maybe he meant like there isn't one in there.
I don't know. I'd be like, what's a loofah?
Yeah, exactly, right?
That as well.
Okay, that's it. I'm gonna tell Mom on you. He spun around and faced the other upstairs rooms. Before he took off, he thought he heard a faint, raspy chuckle, but he couldn't be sure. Mom! He yelled as he raced down the hall. Mom! Mom!
And Mom has a noise-canceling earphones.
He ran into Lisa's room and straight into Mom as she was turning with the empty laundry basket under her arm. What's going on? The tall, willowy woman sputtered in bewilderment, her freckled face showing panicked dismay. Again, too many descriptors for a short sentence.
Yeah.
Mom! Lisa's hogging the bathroom again! Mrs. Brierly stared at her youngest child, dumbfounded. Lisa's hogging the bathroom again? Yeah! Lisa's hogging the bathroom again! Good. Well written. Reiteration. Redundancy. Nice. Ralphie repeated frustratedly, flailing his arms around in wild frustration. And she's stinking up the place with a sauna-scented candles that smell like roadkill. I gotta go really bad, but she won't let me in and she's making me sick. Make her get out so I can go.
I was reading the story with Brady, and then I just look at the other screen and I see Brady going like...
Well, they say he's like flailing the entire time, so... Okay. A few minutes of silence followed as Mrs. Brierly continued to stare at him, wide-eyed with mouth slightly agape. I bet. Then her gaze slowly shifted to over her shoulder. Baffled at her reaction, Ralphie stared back. Then, following the direction of her startled look, she saw, standing in the doorway of a walk-in closet, Lisa, neatly coordinated in skinny black jeans and a bright pink blazer. Her flaming red hair was tied back with a bright green scrunchie, the exact matching color of her eyes. You don't need matching there. Or, you would like to say something to the effect of, the color of which matched her eyes perfectly, or something like that. The exact matching color is kind of awkward.
Also, I don't give a shit about her eyes. What happened? Why is she there?
Right, exactly. What are you talking about? Lisa asked, a deep frown marring her pretty, freckled features. I was here all along, trying to improve the feng shui of my bedroom by reorganizing my entire wardrobe. Okay. This person doesn't know how to write more than one character. They seem to know how to write from their personal perspective, but everything we've seen, and this doesn't seem to be intended for comedy or levity or anything like that, the way the sister is written is so stereotypical of like what you would see in 80s teen films and the like that it's really kind of offensive. Like, this isn't a character, this is a stereotype. And the inclusion of the stereotype doesn't seem to serve any function here. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, every time we mention Lisa, even when it's to other ends, we have to reiterate how self-obsessed, how, like, cosmetic-centric, and how, like, obnoxious she is. Because that's the character, I guess, just that one thing. This is something you see a lot in creepypasta. Characters that have all of one defining trait, but are also present for way too long to just be saying or doing the same one thing over and over and over again.
With flailing arms.
We're not gonna top that, are we?
No.
Nope.
Let me see. Ralphie continued to gape at her, his eyes blinking like a befuddled frog. Fine. The ache in his bladder was warring with the rolling acid in his gut. I think they meant roiling. Both threatening to explode any minute. And I don't use scented candles. Lisa's indignant tone snapped him out of his shocked daze. They're a fire hazard as well as a health risk. Who wants to live in a house stinking like a flower fairy just threw up there? ... Let alone a sun-baked possum casserole. No thank you. So, that wasn't you? Ralphie blurted out. Another ellipsis there. We're starting to see him all over the place. Lisa snorted. Of course not. How can I be in two places at once? See? It couldn't have been Lisa you heard, Mrs. Brierly told Ralphie. It must have been Marley playing an April Fool's prank on you. Hey!
But the point still stands. He needs to pee and the door is locked. Mom!
And a puke, apparently.
And
or
puke, yes.
His stomach's about to explode or something.
It's coming out either way.
Like, how long that's been taking, if I was really in a need to, I would have already pissed myself at that point.
Yeah.
Let me see. I do appreciate that there's a reason it took place on April Fool's. That's another little point in favor of the story here. Tiny point. But let me see. Marley doesn't play pranks, Ralphie grumbled. She doesn't hog all the water or use stinky new agey candles. Yeah, that's a term an 8-year-old would know.
New agey candles.
New age, yeah. It sounded more like Lisa talking. He shuffled his feet and then added, and I really gotta go. Don't go on my Licorn fleece carpet, Lisa cried, looking around wildly for a wastebasket. What is it with these people and peeing in garbage cans?
I don't know.
There's something wrong with this family, and I don't think it has anything to do with hauntings or...
Yeah, like, why does Lisa have to tell him that it's a Licorn fleece carpet?
Because that's her character, you see. That's her one character trait.
Of course.
If you keep listening to all those goddamn kids telling you stories about how Curtisville's like something out of a Stephen King novel, you're naturally going to keep imagining things like monsters and weird smells and ghostly voices coming out of empty rooms. Oh, for Kvasir's sakes!
Who the... Yeah.
What? What?
Where did...
What is... Hold on.
Norse
Are you
god?
Googling Kvasir now?
Or Norse something?
Norse god of, like, poetry and wisdom. What?
Mother, why? And also, why does Lisa sound like a middle-aged, angry woman?
Because everybody in this story is 45 and pissed off.
Like, if you keep listening to all of these goddamn kids. Isn't she a kid
and
too?
Apparently the family are adherents of, like, the traditional Norse pantheon. Like, I know my mythology, and I did not know Kvasir off the top of my head. That's pretty obscure.
The grandfather was called Briarly's son, apparently.
Let's see. Oh, for Kvasir's sakes, Mrs. Brierly flashed her daughter a look of annoyance. Will you just listen to him for 2 minutes? What? I didn't imagine anything, Ralphie yelled at the top of his voice. It happened just like I told you. There's something else in the house with us, and it's using the bathroom. It smells like something dead and rotten. He was just the guy from the God Toilet story again.
Yeah, he just shuffled into the other bathroom stall now.
He travels between toilets.
Yeah.
Via a series of interdimensional gates. Let's see. No one answered the door when Marley knocked and rang several times. Oh, we got a perspective shift! Alright. After peering through the windows, which offered a clear view of nearly all the living room, Marley unlocked the door with her house key. She pushed the door open, then, dropping her duffel bag and grimy soccer uniform to the floor, she raced to turn off the alarm. Oh, an experience I know all too well. After disarming it, she walked to the kitchen for some Gatorade. There we go.
Gatorade Bosnia.
Are we sure she didn't mean Grozd? For some Gatorade, before clumping up the stairs, heading straight for the bathroom. It is the bathroom. Okay. And as she neared the door, she froze to a sudden halt, with one hand raised to grasp the knob. Eyes wide, she slowly drew her hand back and clenched it tightly at her side. Her skin began to prickle as every hair on the back of her neck and arms shot straight up. She stood there, eyes riveted on the window of the bathroom. The muslin curtain was gone, and she could see right inside the room itself. Only it wasn't the same spacious bathroom she was familiar with. It was a ghost bathroom! Let's see. Stained floorboards had replaced the blue and white tile. Instead of the enclosed porcelain tub, she saw a lead-lined, clawfoot monstrosity fastened to the right-hand wall, with a moldy wraparound shower curtain. Instead of bright sunlight, a pale moon shone in. Wrong shone. They used S-H-O-W-N. That should be S-H-O-N-E. In through the window on the far wall. Okay, can we take a moment to appreciate this ridiculous setup?
Yeah.
Pure broad daylight. Person comes home. Instead of hearing something on the other side, instead of her bathroom, she sees, like, a nastier bathroom.
Yeah, it's like mommy forgot to clean it up after Ralphie.
And also, it's nighttime.
It's not, yeah.
It's nighttime inside the bathroom. Because you see, like, 24 hours inside is like 1 hour outside. It's like the hyperbaric time chamber from Dragon Ball.
Yeah, Goku goes there to shit.
Mm-hmm. She cringed with revulsion and cold dread at what she saw next. Several severed, dried human hands with long burning candles screwed into the nails were arrayed around the dismal drab room, casting odd flickering shadows across the lime-coated walls. You think they would have led with that, right?
Yeah, and also I like how they included a picture of it, just in case you needed more description.
But, like, we're going to describe the tub and the shower curtain. We're really going to get in depth here. Oh, and there were also, like, hands of glory strewn around the bathroom. Which is what they're describing here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Marley's eyes widened even further, her jaw dropping. She heard rustling to the right, and then nearly swallowed her tongue in shock when she saw it. A long-fingered, bony hand poking through the shower curtain and drawing it slowly aside. The corpse candles flared brightly for a moment, and then went out. The room immediately turned to darkness. There was no moon now peering through a dimly lit window. The room seemed to swarm with squirming, twitching shadows, and she thought she heard faint rustling, like hundreds of rats or roaches crawling all over. Okay, so concept aside, that was a pretty well-written passage, all told.
Yeah.
Not bad.
It's getting creepy, so yeah, I like it.
It's getting creepy. I don't understand what this has to do with the toilet, though. Like, that's what I'm here for now. Why poop, though? Hashtag, also, why poop, though?
This is how this episode is gonna be called. Why poop, though?
Yeah, really. What were you going to say, Tina?
Yeah, also, why is it still dark inside the yeah.
I assume it went from, like, the alternate universe bathroom to the either, like, these shadow creatures blacking out the entire space, or it's gone back to the regular bathroom with the curtain in place and the light turned off. That's what I think. Oh, were those some kind of cauliflower chips or straws? Oh, no. Little cookies. Nice. I was about to say, the packaging looks very similar to a brand of, like, a cauliflower, like, tortilla-esque chip that I enjoy. It's really good.
Yeah.
You've got cookies while we talk about Our haunted toilets. Excellent. You have a stronger constitution than I.
I was just thinking about dinner.
Let's see. Mom? A small mouse-like squeak escaped as she nearly fell backwards into a bookshelf. Ralphie? Lisa? She never expected to see a tall silhouette emerging suddenly from the darkness beyond the glass panel. She never expected to see the tall mound resembling a lumpish pile of intestines, but sickly bluish gray instead, and rapidly undulating like a mass of worms, or a pale, triangular face peering out between the grisly locks, with steel pale eyes fixed piercingly on Marley's incredulous gaze, and then a widening crescent of needle-like teeth glinting in the dim light. Again,
Okay, this entire paragraph is one sentence.
yeah, way too long. Way too long. Also, apparently, it's just a bunch of discolored intestines with, like, a Tommy Wiseau wig and, like, sharp teeth. That's what I'm getting out of this.
I mean, if I see him, I would already be scared, so not bad.
He's in there. He's going after Lisa.
Yep.
She
That's
blinked.
bullshit. I did not eat her. I did not. Oh, hi, Ralphie.
She blinked, and the thing was gone along with the darkness. The muslin curtain was back in place, illuminated by a warm yellow light. Marley? Lisa's voice snapped her out of her shock, reminding her where she was. What? Marley stammered. She could hear the faint splashing of water, and then Lisa's voice once again drifted out through the sealed door. You okay, Marley? Sounds like you were having an asthma attack? Lisa?
Specific again.
Marley sagged with relief, her breath coming out in a big whoosh. It's just an interesting choice of descriptive language. Big whoosh. Yeah. She tried to laugh, but only managed a choking squeak. Squeaking again. Is it really you? Well, of course it's me, you silly goose, Lisa replied breezily. Who did you think it was? Bigfoot? The creature from the Black Lagoon? Medusa? Other references that, like, teenagers in the modern era would definitely understand?
Wow.
Marley's mouth dropped open as she stared at the door in baffled confusion. Did Lisa just mention the Medusa? She muttered. That's quite a coincidence. She just mentioned it shortly after I saw something very Medusa-like. And since when did Lisa use really age-old expressions? Okay, so it's intentional.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. The plot thickens.
I'm interested. Oh, we're almost to the end, so bear with us, friends. Shakily, she forced herself to take a few steps toward the door. All the while, the logical half of her mind told her sternly she was just being silly, and to stop acting like a scared little kid. But the other half urgently told her not to turn the knob or knock, not to take another step closer to the threshold. And there, just for reference, there have been commas thrown around places they shouldn't be and sentences running on way too long. Throughout the whole creepypasta, if we pointed them all out, we would be here for hours. Say, Liz, said Marley hesitantly, did you happen to know anything weird just now? Notice anything weird just now? What do you mean, anything weird? Lisa asked. Well, Marley thought carefully before choosing her words. Like lights going on and off by themselves. Unexplained drafts, ... Oh, you mean like poltergeist stuff? Yes. Marley looked nervously around the hallway. The quiet was making her uneasy. Maybe I'm just freaking out over nothing, she said quietly to herself. Maybe I just imagined it all. I know I got really stressed out during practice. And it was also very hot, and I knew I should have drunk enough water. Plus, I just had a microwave burrito for lunch, and that was rather gross and sickening. So it was either that, or our house really does have a portal to hell in our bathroom.
It's probably.
What does any of that have to do? What do any of those clauses have to do with each other? I get she's like, oh, I didn't drink enough water, so I might be a little...
hallucinating.
Yeah, I might be delirious, or I might be what have you. But also there's a burrito somewhere in there, and not eating proper breakfast and all this. Again, there's just information being thrown at us, and a lot of these little clauses that the author interjects between commas or sets of em-dashes feels completely ancillary and like it detracts from the main point that a specific sentence or passage is trying to make.
So I'm thinking what the writer here has a big problem with is he's trying to get us to to understand something or to get us to the conclusion, but he doesn't know quite well how to do that. So he's giving these characters words and thoughts that normal people would never think or never do in that situation.
Yeah, right. He's trying to immerse us, or they're trying
Yeah.
to immerse us by giving us as much detail as possible. But the unfortunate reality here is a lot of this story is based around dialogue, and the characters don't seem to have strong, distinct voices all their own. I couldn't tell something written in the voice of the best friend, like the 9.5-year-old, from the mother, from the middle child, or any of that. They all seem to be
Right.
written in the same voice. And our author may be under the assumption that providing as much detail as you can, including these little tangents, is one way to go about writing believable characters or believable dialogue. But the reality is, when we engage with one another in real life, especially extemporaneously, it's really common for us to have gaps in what we say to one another, to have gaps in what we remember or how we remember when we're thinking to ourselves. It's totally fine to present all of this information spread out throughout the story instead of trying to just hammer in more detail with every increasing passage. Descriptive detail. I've often read stories for this series back in the day that didn't have nearly enough descriptive dialogue, or descriptive text, I should say. This is one of a handful I've ever read on Creepypasta Wiki that has too much, I would argue. And again, it creates a lot of sentences that are so long, it's easy, I think, to lose track of what the actual point was. Like, I know this house now, I feel like, but I don't really know any of these characters. Because instead of talking to each other or thinking to themselves, they're just giving me more detail about the world. Like, visual detail, aesthetic detail. Let me see. Well, I did notice the lights flickering when I came in here, Lisa replied thoughtfully. But I didn't think it was anything weird. Maybe just a defective or loose light bulb. Marley nodded slowly. Oh, so no blackout then? Or weird, creepy shadows or monsters appearing and disappearing without explanation? Nope, not a thing, Lisa replied. Why? Did you see something? Is it something serious I should know about? Marley thought for a while. Not really, she said finally. I just thought I saw the bathroom light blink off suddenly, that's all. She struggled nonchalantly, as her mind arrived at the conclusion that what she had just witnessed was actually due to a panic attack caused by stress and dehydration. Give me 1 second, guys. I think I heard my phone go off. Sorry. This will create
No worries.
a gap in the recording, but we're almost done. Almost done.
Off he goes.
Yeah, Seph can just cut it out. I was gonna check my phone and I'm like, where the fuck is my phone? Oh yeah, I'm using it to record.
Nice.
No, it's not nice. I need to check my messages.
Alright, and we're back. Sorry about that.
You're forgiven.
For now.
Everything's good. Let's see. She struggled nonchalantly as her mind arrived at the conclusion that what she had just witnessed was actually due to a panic attack caused by stress and dehydration. Lisa will just think you're weird if you tell her about the horrifying vision you just had. She'll probably tell all her friends that you're a spooky psychic nutcase, and she'll never want to be in the same house with you ever again, she thought.
Good.
Well, I'll just go wash up in the kitchen then, said Marley casually. Try not to stay in there too long or you'll end up looking like Grandma. I'm noticing also they capitalize Mom, Dad, and Grandma throughout, which is unusual for, well, if you're using proper titles, maybe.
Yeah.
But normally I think you wouldn't capitalize those things.
Yeah.
Maybe that's her name.
Yeah, maybe the mother's name is Mom and the father's name is Dad.
No, Dad's name is Grandma and Mom's name is...
Right.
yeah. I wouldn't know about that. I failed that test, so...
Well, no, their names were... they don't have one.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
everybody given the same name. Non-applicable. Okay, let's see. Turning away, she expected Lisa to answer back with a sarcastic comeback, but instead her sister gave a tinkly laugh. What? Marley stopped abruptly in mid-turn and started a startled look at the door. Did I just hear my normally bitchy sister give me a high-pitched giggle? Again, nobody thinks like this!
Yeah.
Normally,
Okay.
like, who uses that kind of description in standard conventional speech?
Or in standard conventional thought, like my thought would
Right.
be, the fuck?
Right!
That's what my brain would tell.
Her nose crinkled when she suddenly caught whiff of a pungent odor like burnt resin and singed rope, mixed with a combination of skunk, rotten fruit, and sweaty armpit. Oh, she's smoking a joint. Well, that explains her good humor then.
That's not how joints smell like.
So, like,
I
I
heard.
wouldn't know, but what she's describing sounds like brimstone.
Yeah.
Shrugging dismissively, Marley turned around and headed toward the stairs. If she gets caught by Mom, it's not my problem then.
Good.
It's not my problem then.
But now it is.
No, I think they meant to say, then if she gets caught by Mom, well, if she gets caught by Mom, it's not my problem. Yeah, then doesn't have a place here at all.
No. It's like when you are writing a text and then instead of pressing the dot, you press like the next word and then it kind of autocorrect does some weird shit. So I hope this was not written by phone.
She went downstairs to the living room where she retrieved her duffel bag. As she strode toward the kitchen, she stood still for a moment, looking back and listening intently. The silence here was deafening like it was upstairs, but she felt a current of cold air brushing past her elbow, accompanied by a faint but rancid smell. Marley frowned as she shook her head impatiently. I got way better things to do with my time than to start imaging stuff from all those late-night scary movies I watched on Sci-Fi.
Imaging
Shout
stuff.
out to the Sci-Fi Network.
Not
but yeah, that's our second series typo, imaging. Right on. She's visualizing them. And then she's going to use the law of attraction to make the poop specter a reality. Let me see. She could hear the muffled sound of hurrying footsteps upstairs, and then voices raised in a heated argument with her brother's whiny voice, being the shrillest and adding to the chorus. Sounded like Ralphie was in desperate need of the bathroom once again. Sounded? Like past tense in her own thoughts as it's happening?
Yeah.
Okay, well, tenses are fucked. And that's the end. So, real quick, just to make sure I'm comprehending this fully, it sounds like the younger sister, so the middle siblings part of the story, her POV,
was before
Ralphie. Immediately preceded Ralphie's.
Yeah. So her sister went into the bathroom as Marley went downstairs, and then Ralphie came and saw the dark.
Well, no, they both had encounters with the creature, one after the other.
Yeah. So basically, the creature looks like Lisa.
Or no, it looks like a pile of intestines with the Tommy Wiseau wig.
Sounds like Lisa.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Lisa was like talking to Marley first.
It could speak in her voice.
The door.
It could speak in her voice, but it was using its own like antiquated language and turns of phrase and all that. It's just a little off, which I think, as far as writing goes, the monster itself is written better than any other character for the purpose it serves in the story. But I don't really understand why the two POV segments are arranged in the order that they are. I get that the sister had a more visceral experience, but there's no reason then you couldn't just have the younger brother have a more frightening encounter and present it all linearly.
Yeah, and also, I mean, yeah.
Go ahead, Seph.
I was just gonna say, like, and also, where is the conclusion? Like, wouldn't then, like, because Marley probably heard Ralphie screaming that there was something in the bathroom and talking to Mom and whatever, she would come out and be like, hey, I saw and smelled something like that as well, you know?
Like, I wanted to say, to me, it sounded like they were trying to make it seem like it, like, when you're reading it at the start, it would seem as maybe it was happening after the encounter with Ralphie, to make it seem like something happened to the whole family.
Yeah.
Right. So the way this creepypasta comes across to me is as though it fell afoul of one of the pasta writer's greatest sins, quite easily. And that is that it seemed as though the whole story was written without the backspace key ever being pressed a single time. It
Yeah.
feels like there are several parts where careful editing could have created a narrative that flowed together a bit more naturally, where things that characters said or did, concepts they introduced, were actually relevant to the story throughout, and that there wasn't a lot of just wasted exposition. But it felt like the story was written across multiple different sessions. The author had a half formed recollection of what they had written in the previous segment and definitely knew where they wanted to take the story and just kept writing with that kind of disjoint continuity from session to session. Because remember, early on, there's all kinds of exposition about, like, Ralphie's dad works for this really important local contractor who built so many of the houses there. That might be important. It's not. The elderly woman who apparently tried to commit suicide had animalistic, like, gashes on her arms. That might be important. It's not. There are vampires and vampire lore scattered about. That might be important. It's not. Then we see, like, the Hands of Glory and some kind of skeletal creature that has a completely different appearance the next time we see it.
Yeah.
Or, like, in the next paragraph. And so it feels like there's a lot of decently crafted horror elements or narrative elements here, but not a lot of effort was put into actually threading them together into a single coherent world, a single coherent story. Just things are thrown at the audience and forgotten immediately thereafter, constantly. And that's really exhausting, kind of.
Yeah, so I'm going through the comments right now, and generally they're very positive. But there is one comment that actually gave 19 grammatical fixes. So, and I see that the author replied and said he fixed them. So what we were reading is the fixed version, grammatically fixed version.
Oh no.
Yes. And also, like, the commentator asked, like, if they just ran out of the house, and because, fuck this house. And the author replied, no, because they're rather stubborn and rather skeptical people who aren't going to give a house in a nice location. We're not gonna give a house in a nice location on
Give
account
up
of
a
one.
house, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on account of one paranormal event.
Oh, wait.
But that was not really a small one.
Listen to this. So somebody, Raydra commented and says, I imagine it's hard enough moving into a new house without monsters smoking stinkweed in the bathroom. Having followed the drafts. What?
So I guess he
Okay.
was reading it as it was being written.
Yeah, there were
Yeah.
multiple drafts of this thing. I was
Yeah.
looking forward to see how you ended it. I think you did well, and I can appreciate the flawless change you made from Ralphie knowing about Vlad the Impaler in the draft to having Count Von Count being one of his only vampire references in the finished story. Flawless? That still
So
doesn't change the
apparently,
fact that the 9-year-old had a bunch of obscure cultural references
yeah.
on hand. And it was what? He knew the Count and what was the other vampire he referenced early on? Hold on.
Count Von
Um
Count and Vlad Impaler, those were the two.
oh, no, Scooby Doo. Vampires on
Scooby
Scooby
Doo.
Doo. Okay, it's fair enough. Let me see. I liked how obsessive the house's previous owner was with her method of protecting against vampires. I also loved the foreshadowing by comparing the weapon the woman was found with versus the wounds she had. I've used an X-Acto knife in my art and classwork, so I know what kinds of marks it makes. Overall, it's a good, unsettling story. It's one of those that just starts out as a basic slice of life story. Then as you progress, and after you finish, you wonder, what just happened? What's going on here?
Yeah,
That's a
That's
good
usually
story.
not a, that's
Yeah.
usually not a good thing.
Yeah.
And they say, in response, the author says, thank you. I'm trying to avoid all the cliches listed in this wiki, like the monster either kill and eats you or does more horrible things to you. Okay, so based off of their replies, this was copy edited extensively.
Yeah.
Their grammar doesn't seem to be that great. But if this was the final product of, like, a pretty extensive revision process,
Mm-hmm.
then it's pretty poor, I have to say. The original, like if this were, as we thought, just one thing written in one go and then uploaded to the
Yeah.
internet, I would say for like a younger person's first attempt at something like this, or one of their first attempts, it's not terrible.
Yeah, honestly, I really enjoyed the story. But it's the problem that I have is that the characters are not believable. That
The
is not
characters aren't
how people
believable,
are.
and there's too much information being
Yeah.
thrown at the reader that is completely irrelevant.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the author never communicated with another human being, and he thinks that's how humans talk,
Yeah.
which again could be another like meta creepy pasta here. But yeah,
Or
it's
again, there's
weird.
operating under the conception that detail equals believability.
Yeah.
That's what I think is going on here. Um, it's also I do appreciate that this isn't like just a ridiculous like slasher supernatural killer story. That it's
Yeah.
more subtle, it's more subdued.
Yeah.
There's the implication of a lot of things without like having a monster in your face every other
Mm.
paragraph. I appreciate that. It's an attempt at a psychological horror, but it doesn't really work because, as you said, the way the characters are written, the way the entire narrative and like story are being delivered to the audience, like the composition itself, and also the fact that it seemed to me like the author never was entirely sure what exactly they wanted to do with the story, beyond maybe avoiding extant cliches in the field. Like, we never get any detail or any concrete like implication as to what the monster might be, why it's there, why the contractor or the building process was so important. Like I feel like you could have tied some of these details together a bit more strongly, right? Like okay, maybe this contractor constructed scores of old homes throughout the city and there have been mysterious occurrences or incidents that happen across them throughout the decades,
Yeah.
and maybe because Ralphie's helping his dad out around one of the old houses he's working on renovating or something one day, they come across some unsettling designs in like an old boarded up room or something like that. Some of those etchings and engravings.
Mm.
And then things start to happen in their own home and they have to
Yeah.
piece it together. You could do
But
something like that. And this is just me
yeah.
spitballing off the top of my head. But it
I will
feels
be
like,
right back.
all right,
Yeah.
there's too many parts that don't really work as a whole here, and that's quite a shame because the author isn't untalented at all. Like
Yeah.
they can write reasonably well, especially for
I
what I
mean,
assume to be a younger person.
so I'm not sure if the author even knows this, but I really like the use of Hands of Glory in this story because,
Mm-hmm.
well, since I know a lot about witchcraft, Hands of Glory were traditionally used in spells to put the opponent, the opponents into a never-ending coma,
Mm-hmm.
which like this kind of does seem like people being stuck in a house in like a never-ending nightmare
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. So I'm not sure if that's where the author was, what the author was going for, but
I
it,
think they, because clearly they attach several images, which you guys can see if you follow
yeah,
the link that we're going to post in the description.
yeah,
Clearly, a hand of glory is what they were going for. They have like
yeah,
illustrations of them.
yeah.
But they seem to be just using them as like creepy, grungy bathroom tea
Oh,
lights.
no, 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 no. Like the last picture actually has the sigils from the Key of Solomon, so that is definitely used in witchcraft. The last image.
Yeah, exactly. But
I
in the
mean, could
story,
be a
they're just
coincidence.
used as footlights. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think they probably just searched like corpse candle illustration or something like that.
Could be, yeah.
Um,
Could be just a coincidence. It does
which is
fit the story, but yeah,
which is a real shame because they could have done something interesting, something more with that. Like
yeah.
I don't know, having the family members one by one start sleepwalking and doing strange things in the bathroom under something else's
That's what I
control.
thought. Yeah, that's what I thought they were going for. That like Lisa was the first one being affected because she was
Hmm.
always hogging the bathroom, so she was the first one who like laid down in the same bathtub where the old lady died. So I was
Yeah,
like, okay, she's the first one to go. She's the first one under the effect. Next one was gonna be Marley, and then Ralphie was obviously gonna be the last one since he never gets to use the freaking bathroom.
yeah.
And then he was gonna be like, oh, my family's crazy. I knew something was gonna happen. La la la. That's what I thought this was going for.
Oh, and then there was also that aside about like the grungy old closet toilet that like just never comes up again.
Exactly. There was way too much description of the freaking toilet for it to never be used.
There's too much description of so many things for them to just be not like red herrings, right? Because a red herring in fiction is something intended to provoke the audience into thinking, the real mystery is X, the real culprit is Y, and then throwing them off from the actual narrative that gets revealed later on. But nothing here was intended to mislead or distract the audience. It was just a bunch of stuff thrown at us that was never picked back up again.
Yeah.
So I think concept is interesting. Mm-hmm. I appreciate the composition of this draft is not perfect. There's too many run-on sentences. There's too many clauses crammed into certain sentences and passages. But in terms of major typographical errors and misspellings, it's generally pretty solid. Some of the capitalization and punctuation is a little sus. A lot of it's just the delivery, the way the narrative is presented to us. It's a story that came so close to being like, yeah, pretty good, but I can't recommend this because of the way it's executed.
Yeah, it's really exhausting to read it, to be honest. It really feels like you need to put effort to read it. But I generally like the story. Like, I wouldn't mind it, but it needs to be presented a little bit better.
Yeah, if you took a second stab at this with a more coherent, like, beginning, middle, and end in mind, it would be pretty solid, I think.
I'm just disappointed Ralphie didn't pee his pants or shit his pants or whatever.
Well, I mean, I was expected to find out what was going on with him running around the house with that gun out. Like, was he going to, like, trapped in the closet and just start holding all the family members? Like, okay, who hogged the bathroom?
Freeze or I'm gonna shoot. Shit. Shoot. No. Shit.
One or the other, or both at the same time. I'm not sure.
So, overall, how would we evaluate both of these? Oh wait, hold on. There's a story or a comment from either Jari Bare or Jerbear16. They say, "I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't even tell it ended. I just scrolled down a little bit and was like, oh, there's the comments. Story's done. It was pretty unsettling, with no real questions answered. But unlike some pastas, this one gives you a pretty good idea of who or what this entity is, and apparently what it did in its spare time too. With the conclusion just kind of ending and the story not really going anywhere, but coupled with a sense of not really knowing what going on and some pretty great storytelling, I'd say this deserves a strong 8.5 out of 10. So they're way too generous. But the issues they brought up in the first half of that comment, I agree with wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
It just kind of ends.
Yeah, so for the rating for these creepypastas, like for the first one, the God Toilet, I thought that was honestly a joke. Like, that cannot be taken seriously. So for me, like on a scale of 1 to 10, that would be like a 3, maybe. Because
I thought you were going to say number 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, like a solid 2.
Maybe a slightly runny, painful 2.
I mean, considering there was blood, I would assume it was a solid 2. Yeah, a very solid 2. No, I did not want to go for that joke because we thought it was a low-hanging fruit, but you guys just had to pick on that.
We don't care. Those are the easiest to pick.
Yeah. So yeah, 3 out of 10 because, like, an effort was made, basically, and it was a good chuckle, and generally the story was not written in a bad way. Like, compared to the other one, the first story was actually written well.
Yeah, it really was.
And this one I would give like 6 out of 10 because it is spoopy. It is spoopy, but it's very hard to read, and yeah, people just don't react in that way. And I think that as I said before, I think it's the issue that the author wanted us, like, to drive us in a certain direction, and he didn't know how to do it except with the dialogue, and the dialogue seemed way too unrealistic.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, your thoughts and judgment of these stories.
I can't believe that it will end by me saying like this. I would rate the God's Toilet higher than this one because at least it was written nicely.
Yeah.
And this was just so much useless. Like, that could have been the length of the God Toilet creepypasta.
And you
would have gotten the same effect.
Yeah.
Because there was so much useless text here. And just the fact that, like, little kids don't talk like that.
No.
They don't know those phrases. They would know much horrible things to say, much more profanity, for sure.
Yeah.
But new agey,
Right.
New age,
nope,
yes.
nope. And God, I don't even know what else. But yeah, like this one, I'd give this one maybe a 4.
Mm.
No, I can't because I have to give the God Toilet a 5. Uh, yeah, this is like a 3, and the God Toilet's a 4.
It's fair.
See? Nice. 3 and
What
4.
about you,
Nice.
Okay.
Brady?
Good solid failures. I also am going to have to give God Toilet a higher rating because I think insofar as what it set out to do, what it set out to be, right, the initial conceit, was achieved. Whether or not that's a good thing is entirely up to your discretion. I don't think any of us were particularly blown away or blown out by God Toilet's overall concept, its conceit. But it was written well, and the author clearly, at least for the first half of the story, wanted you to laugh with them rather than at them.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the narrative text, a lot of the description there, making this this like a very casual first-hand account of something that the author expects to laugh about or the narrator expects to laugh about with you, worked. So some of God Toilet worked. The the hard shift towards what I assume was meant to be horror in the last like 2 to 3 paragraphs was just too abrupt. It didn't really do anything for me. So I'm going to give God Toilet maybe a 5.5, maybe even a 6, because it was written very well, and it is
Jeez.
just better. Oh, trust me, Mate. Tina has listened to the backlog of Overanalyzing Creepypasta. I don't know if
There's been
you've taken a
shit.
deep dive.
I
Most of the
was just
stories we featured here are much worse. Um, the other one though, Cochrane Road or Cochrane Lane. I'll just call it the Devil Toilet, like as the counterpart to our other story. Well, I already gave my thoughts. It feels kind of disjoint. It feels directionless. It feels like there's a lot of wasted time and wasted space, and the world feels as though we've been given a really good visual description of everything and everyone, but we don't know any of these characters because we don't see distinct personalities from them or their language or their sentence structure, anything like that. And the monster itself is serviceable, but I don't like the fact that it seems to have 3 or 4 different appearances without explanation depending on the scene. It feels more like lazy or inconsistent writing than deliberate modification of information that had already been presented. So I'm going to give Devil Toilet in its current form maybe a 5. Because it has, 4.5, sorry. It has a certain level of compositional polish. All of those proofreads that people in the comments carried out were a huge help. Otherwise, I'd be rating this much lower. Still little areas that need to be buffed up here and there, but other than just starting with a clearer direction in mind, I can't say I could suggest that much to improve what we have. It's just not pulled off all that well.
Yeah.
So, my thoughts. There you are.
I'd like to think that the God Toilet one was not someone like making up a shitty story, but someone just misunderstood the concept of creepypasta and just written something that actually happened to him.
Right.
Yeah. And also misread the creepypasta for crappy pasta. And,
which is an actual thing
story
on the internet.
So now
It
you
was a
know.
crappy pasta. Any final thoughts from either of you?
No.
I've said all I have to say.
All
Enough
right
shit
then.
from us for today.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for the revival of Overanalyzing Creepypasta. I hope these 2 shitty stories were sufficient to whet your appetite for more in the future, as we're going to be releasing these episodes fairly regularly. Shock of shocks, now that I have, like, my own team to work with and technology, we can do things more routinely, instead of me just panicking and trying to release a single unedited OBS clip wherever I can. And yes, I do hope you've enjoyed. I hope the new format is to your liking. I am exceedingly grateful to Martina and Mate both for joining me here, as well as for working and allowing me to work with them on so many projects in the recent past. It's been a real pleasure, and we hope to bring you scores of additional content in the days to come. In the meantime, if there's anything at all that you would like us to cover, please feel free to let us know, either in the comment section below or by writing an email containing links, stories, anything at all you would like to send our way to. And correct me if I've got this wrong, Tina, the Overanalysts at gmail.com.
Exactly.
No, the Overanalysts podcast.
Podcast.
Oh,
That's it.
gmail.com. Jesus,
whoopsie.
people.
Sorry. Once more. That's the Overanalysts podcast at gmail.com if there's anything in particular that you would like to send our way. Again, some of this information should be in the description, but we just want to give it all to you in this form as we can. Also, please feel free to subscribe to this channel because in addition to Overanalyzing Creepypasta, the Overanalysts channel serves as the hub for the Overanalysts podcast, a very, very conversational talk show that the three of us host most weeks, settling around gaming as both a culture and an industry. We tackle a wide variety of topics, both silly and serious, and also take audience topic suggestions for that program. And if it's of interest to you, you can catch all of our stream VODs from our respective Twitch accounts right here on this channel. This is your one-stop shop for all things Overanalysts in the future. So thank you once again so much. It means the world to me to be able to bring this show to you once again and to be hosting it with people I absolutely adore working with. I hope that it's to your liking and that you have some suggestions or feedback for us because, in projects like this, any type of collaborative work online, it's really something we all make together. And that includes you all as listeners. Tell us what you'd want to hear, what we can improve, and what you enjoyed from what you've heard today. Thank you so much for your time. And until next time, have a wonderful rest of your day. Farewell.
Bye.